One of Astra's best maps is back in the rotation, so let's not waste any time with formalities and get right to the guide. I'm chill and let's get into it. If you're interested in free VOD reviews, check out my Discord in the description below. These will be done live on my stream every Friday. Just make sure to read the rules and requirements before submitting your VOD. All right, back to the video. We'll start off on defense, where most of the time you'll want to buy 2 stars and a ghost, but if you prefer the classic light shield or frenzy, those are decent options as well. 2 stars can be placed pre-round in A main and B long between the screens box and left corner of the wall. Just make sure when placing this smoke not to leave any gaps. You can save the 3rd star to use where needed. You can play on either A or B, but I've seen most players favor A. It all depends on your plan for the round and what your teammates want to do and where they want to play, which we'll get into when discussing full buy rounds. If you won round 1, you can max out your stars and buy up for round 2. Generally, I prefer the bulldog and whatever shield I can afford. If you have enough for the regen and light shield but not full shield, I'd always opt for the regen shield. On your anti-eco rounds, you'll likely take some chip damage, so that regen shield may come in handy. On a save, you can stick with 1 star and a classic to ensure the full buy with 5 stars next round. Sometimes I'll get 2 or more stars if I can afford to buy the next round, or if I plan on full buying with a light shield. If your team decides to force here, I'd get at minimum 2 stars to use as a smoke and concuss or suck, and whatever gun you can afford with light shield. Now let's go over some default setups you can use, as well as some aggressive options to fight for early map control. The first is a common 3-star default, which looks like this. You'll want 3 stars placed in the pre-round for A main, art, and B long. Most rounds can be played with this default, assuming you have 4 or 5 stars at your disposal. These stars allow you to quickly smoke these common chokes when needed. If you're at A, a common way to play is a quick scale up towards the orb, usually accompanied by your initiator's recon util, whether that's a dart deep in A main or a fade eye that sees into restaurant. If the attackers aren't here, you can begin your flank through spawn or mid. Quick note on this play, you can run and silently jump up these stairs as shown by Xander in this clip.
That's like sad.
Now let's take a look at some alternatives that you can use. If you saw my Abyss guide, you may recall that you can opt for a 4th star in the pre-round in front of the A or B smoke star, which would typically be used as a gravity well. The same can be applied to Pearl. So if you're expecting a B or A rush, you can place a grav well star down where you think makes the most sense. Another 4-star alternative uses a star inside the double doors at the top of B link to assist your teammate. Here's an example of a perfectly timed grav well used by Nats.
Are they coming to?
I pulled them.
Pulling them in. Enemy down. I'll find
I can.
His fade calms for the suck, Jet tries to dash past it, and Fade gets the pick while the attackers are unable to trade due to the well. Those will be your standard setups, so let's take a look at some aggressive plays you can make as Astra. First, we'll take an example out of Bang's playbook with 2 stars placed deep in A main, which allows you and ideally your duelists to fight for this space at the start of the round. This type of aggressive space taking forces the attackers to use util if they want to contest this space, and the nice crossfire this sets up for you and a teammate gives you a decent advantage in the gunfight. A similar play can be made at B. This may require more util and a 3rd teammate to fight for this space, but this can be a decent play when you're at an economic disadvantage. Fighting from pillar and the cubby on the right here can make it difficult for the attackers to take this space, so give this play a try and see what you can do. Now let's go over what retake utility you can use starting over at B. For smokes, you can consider re-smoking long or smoking the bomb. Another option is this mid-site smoke when retaking from spawn. This allows you to work into halls and block off most of the annoying sight and long angles when retaking from here. As for concusses and sucks, this will depend on what info you have on the enemy, but generally you can use them in common positions like either outlet of halls and the far left corner behind the gen box. Just like other maps on defense, Astra's ult will almost always be used for retakes, so at B you can place your ult along the edge of sight, which forces the attackers to maintain halls control or push through the wall from long to stop the defuse. Remember that you or a teammate can hold the wall from the opposite end while the other defuses to kill attackers as they peek through. Over at A, for retake smokes we can go the A main or bomb smoke route, or even art if it's known the enemies are here. If enemy positions are known, it's best to smoke the bomb in this scenario. For your concuss and suck, it's a similar story to B. The typical positions are default plant spot, church, dugout, and even back sight may work. Reminder that recall and mid-sight smokes can also work if you're at a gun disadvantage and you need to force close range fights, so don't be afraid to get creative and try catching the attackers off guard. As for your retake ult, you have a few options. This will change depending on the enemy's known locations and where the bomb is planted. If it's safe in default, you can use the close wall that blocks art and main vision, also forcing the attackers to use utility to delay the defuse or push through the wall. If it's planted open, you can either wall off A main, assuming all enemies are there, or if it's possible enemies are in art and main, you can wall diagonally across both chokes. On attack pistol, the buy can be the same as defense or your preferred defense buy, but typically 3 stars is the way to go. That way you have 2 for the execute onto sight and a third you can use as needed. The second round after a win will be the same as defense, so no changes here. The only difference with your attack buy on a save is buying 1 star, so you have 2 smokes for the execute. For your default stars, you'll almost always want to start with a star here in B long to threaten the cross whether your team decides to use it or not. This recall conditions the defenders throughout the attack round and makes them question if you're actually crossing or not. If you're going B, this can make it really difficult for the oppers to hold, as now you and your teammates can be on either angle of the long pillar. Getting across this angle without utility can be dangerous, so this recall is a staple. You can also use a similar idea in A main for the orb. I've seen pros both use a star on the orb itself and deeper towards the A choke. Both accomplish similar things but have trade-offs. For the deeper one, it's possible the defender scales past it by the time you get to the angle, but allows you to cross behind the box without being seen from the choke, and the closer recall gives more space to the defender, allowing them to sneak over to the box, so be aware of that. Still, on the upside, it will enable you to cross without being seen from the choke, and a closer angle which can allow you to set up a crossfire with a teammate on a defender that's scaled up. Both of these recalls can be used as needed, but the B recall can be pretty much used every round you have 4 or 5 stars. Now let's go over some sight execute utility that can set up your team for a successful attack. Starting on A will make use of that recall B a few seconds after the round begins to sell it. If you need an exact time, you can recall at 136 since reaching the choke from spawn barrier takes a few seconds. If you want to contact up A slowly, you don't need to use a recall here the first time you do this play, however, it's up to you. For the sight smokes, you typically want to smoke art and flowers. This is because these 2 chokes are faster routes for the defenders to flood or retake sight. Since you don't have a third smoke, you can use a concuss or suck in secret to prevent defenders from peeking this angle, and also allow your duelist to scale up and fight a defender for control of this position. Another option is to concuss back sight, since this is a common position for defenders to play. It's relatively small, so there'll either be a sitting duck back there, or if they move out of it, they'll expose themselves on the left or right. This concuss and suck for back sight and secret can be used simultaneously or individually, depending on where you think the defenders will be. If you think you'll need the grav well for post plant, save it for then. You can also use a sight smoke on the left and right side of the coffee stand if you or a teammate needs help getting out from default, or you want to play around the smokes to fight on sight. When ulting A, you can mimic the smokes by walling from art to spawn through flowers. On an eco, you can also consider splitting the sight in half horizontally with a smoke and art to force close range fights. With the initial ult, you can either use the same concuss or suck in secret and back sight. You can also smoke a bit deeper to maintain control of dugout. Over on B, you'll want to use that recall to get your team out into long or cross to the jump up box on the left. There are a couple things we can do in long if needed before taking sight. If it's known a defender is in the cubby on the left or behind pillar, getting off a quick concuss in these positions can help our teammates deal with it. Now let's talk about a couple ways to smoke B. The first variation uses a tower smoke and B-link smoke to deny vision from these common positions. When smoking tower, you can bias the star towards the far side near the corner of the doorway. This creates more coverage and a bit of a one-way for defenders attempting to retake through CT. It's a minor thing, but it can deter defenders from taking a fight from the deep CT position as your team takes sight. Another variation you can use is a double tower smoke, which blocks tower and CT. Since Astra smokes are larger, it'll completely cover this choke. To prevent the link peek, you can use a gravity well here instead. As for your concuss and suck, there are a few options. Most commonly, you'll find a defender holding or peeking the left hall position, so throwing in a suck or concuss here can allow your duelist to scale up and take this fight. You can do the same for the far hall outlet if the defender is spotted there. A concuss behind screens can also work well, but I'd most likely only concuss here if an enemy is scanned by recon, spotted by a drone ability, or they're known to commonly play here. If you want to prevent a fast flood out to sight from B-link, you can use the anti-flood grav well in front of the smoke. When ulting B, there are a couple walls to consider. The first is this wall that gives you nearly full sight control and blocks off all 3 chokes. This one allows you to take halls control, which you can supplement with a suck and concuss on either side of the halls outlets. This wall can be very strong in the post plant, especially if there is an Astra on the other team with a wall to counter yours for the defuse. The other wall cuts off most of sight and allows you space to plant for long. The downside of this one is that you are forfeiting sight and most of halls, so playing long for the post plant is ideal. You will likely need a suck to delay the defuse since you'll most likely get smoked off of vision of the spike, so keep that in mind. I've been seeing the first wall used more frequently since Pearl came back, so most of the time you'll probably want to use that one. Last, we'll go over how you can use your utility in mid to help your team take fights and get to sight. One common smoke that can be used is for B link, which blocks vision from a defender who may be playing at the site choke and the close left cubby. This smoke allows you to isolate the fight in upper link and connector. A solid play you can attempt with this smoke is having a teammate use their drone ability into connector and follow it in for the kill. After getting connector control, you can decide to continue towards A or B link, depending on what info you have on the defender's position. This is also a great position to insert yourself or a teammate for a lurk opportunity. If fighting in B link, you can also use a suck or concuss at the bottom of link so you can scale up towards B. When coming out of B site, you can use those double tower smokes again. If you're taking art, a decent smoke you can use is in connector, allowing you to move through art to A site. If a defender is suspected of playing here, you can concuss behind the box in art. When coming out of art to site, if you already used that connector smoke, you can put the second one in flowers and use that same grav well in secret, for example. You can always concuss or suck a dugout as well. I'll also quickly mention that lurking through mid can be very strong on this map, and Astra is one of the agents best suited for the job, so don't be afraid to take advantage of these opportunities. Pearl is one of Astra's best maps, and hopefully after watching this guide, you can see the potential she has here. And that's going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from me in the future. Subscribe for more videos like this and check out this one next for more. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.